Okay, guys, welcome back here. I'm going to go ahead. This is the third part to the demo for building the castle. So this is what I sort of have right now. I haven't finished this detail right here. I'm going to add a little bit more up in the front here, and I'm just going to finish that later. I just wanted to jump ahead. One of the things I did is I just went ahead and I blocked some of this in real quick. And again, I just took a couple of those brushes that I gave you guys the other day, and I just blocked in some local color because my thought was having my castle sort of up on this hill. But what I want to really start to do right now, since I've only been working on the castles, I want to start developing foreground elements, and I also want to put in some background in there and get a good feel for the depth relationship that's starting to happen inside the piece. So I've done enough information there for now, and I like having this blocked in sort of rough like this because I haven't really, it's all on one layer and I've committed to it, but I can come back from this point forward. I like to just rough out the rest of the overall design. So what I did is I want to show you, I went through and I went online actually, and I could load this up on the blog. I grabbed a bunch of reference here, and let me just show you, and I was trying to match the perspective. And so I came across these stones right here. These could be really cool in the foreground right there. I like that open field there and the atmospheric perspective that's being displayed right here as all this fades way off in the back. I thought about using the lower section of that photo. I like some of these rocks right here. I can use these in the foreground plane that transition. So all I did was I typed in just some basics. I typed in rocky foreground or rocky cliffside, and those images came up. And then again, like I showed you before, I went under the image selections and I looked for images that were either large or above 720 DPI. And then I also typed in yellow sunsets, because I have, if you look back at my core image here, I have a lot of yellow highlights on here. So the clouds are going to be somewhat similar to this. And this is actually pretty cool. I happened to find that one. I thought that was a great piece of reference. That's a piece of reference that's on the blog. I thought about using some of this and some of the rock front there. And I could even have a little walkway that leads down to the castle a little bit. So I just grabbed a bunch of these different photos from online. And here's another one where I'm looking down. So I just thought I'd cover a couple things just as a reminder about perspective. So something that you can use that's really handy for you is to always remember where that horizon line is. So I want to show you really quick by using rulers on your keyboard. If you hit Command R real quick, it brings up a ruler selection around the window. So as I just hit Command R, you can see these rulers pop up. And what's neat about the rulers, if I come over here and I touch with my cursor and I drag down, I can bring a line and I can place in like an official horizon line so I don't forget where it is. And my horizon line is right about right there. And as I take my hand off of that ruler to see what happens, I leave a blue line in there, and that's really handy for me because if I'm ever measuring or moving anything across, I can do that really quickly. Now, if I hit Control R again, the rulers disappear, but I still have this guideline that's in there. That's my horizon line. So I can continue to build off of that, and if I wanted to, if I scroll down under View and go to Extras, that's all I have to do and it's gone. So again, I hit Control R, I just touch on the ruler, I drag down, I could come in here really quick and throw in a horizon line. So I'm going to do that right now as a reminder as I continue to work. I was going to block in the rest of this and here, but I don't know exactly what I might end up seeing right now. So I already went ahead and I took a couple images that I had from the blog site. Let me show you which ones I grabbed here. I grabbed this image right here. Okay, I really like this because number one, it has a low horizon line. I'm looking up at this rock structure, and there's a lot of cool arches and elements in there that I could use to my advantage. So what I did is I took that and I copied and pasted that inside my scene. Okay, and I sort of, and I have that right here. Why does it keep going off the layer? There it is. And I have that sitting right in here. You see that? And so I know if I look at my horizon line, I know I'm looking up under this, so I know that would be in the correct perspective. I thought maybe being able to incorporate some of that in here somehow, maybe if I get it up here, let's say in the foreground like this, and I have like a rock cliff here, and then I'm looking up under this, it's matching that same perspective that's there. The only thing is I have to be careful. This horizon line, look, I could just barely see up there, so I need the photo to be just about like right there to sort of fit that perspective, pretty good, because I can't really see. I can see a little bit underneath that, so that's about the right perspective. And then what I could do is I could block in the rest. Now, one of the problems is that this is really the same value as this structure in the back. in an atmospheric perspective, anything that's close to me has to be darker. So one of the first things I'm going to do is come in here. I'm going to go Control L to levels. I'm going to come over here to the main slider. And if you come over here and if I just grab this and I reduce the amount of white and darken this into sort of a darker foreground value, it's going to get this to pop out a little bit more, because this is immediately in my foreground and I want it to be a lot darker here, and I want this to pop out. So after doing that, what I'm going to do is come in here and I'm just going to grab a couple colors and I'm just going to sort of block in really fast a little bit more foreground in here. And I like the thought of this coming across. Remember, I showed you that method of just blocking in with like a local color. And then once you get that local color sort of set in place, you can come back in and then paint on top of it, put some detail, rock, texture, whatever you want. But I like the thought of that being in there. What I don't like is how this area is getting covered. So I'm going to go to eraser really quick. Or actually, I'll just take my lasso and I'm going to select part of this in here. Actually, you know what? What if I just did this? I'm just curious, what if I just delete only this part in here? And I want to, I want to keep that little part. If I delete that. So I don't want to obstruct my castle completely. So let me see. I like the way that's sort of looking, but maybe I need to take my castle, transform it a little bit, make it a little bit smaller, and put it back here and move it over to the side. I like seeing the side view of my castle, and that gets sort of blocked right now. So what I'm going to do is Command Z, bring it back. Let's transform the castle. I'm going to make it a little, I'm going to sort of do both. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, adjust that back to where it was on the horizon line, which is right about there. And then I'm going to come into some of this art structure, and I think I'm going to delete some of this off now so I can see more of the castle. So I'm just going to take my eraser. I'm going to come in here right now and just maybe come in here and, One thing I need to do, I'm going to label my layers. So I keep touching on the wrong layer, and that's because I don't have them labeled. I'm used to seeing everything labeled. So there we go. So now I'm going to come in here, look, and I'm just going to take my eraser and I'm going to start erasing some of this out of here. Make sure your eraser's at 100%. Maybe this structure is old and like broken apart. Actually, I like sort of that rock that's in there. I'm going to leave some of that in there. Let's get this out. There, now I can really see a lot more of the castle in the back. It's not being as covered as much. That's pretty cool. And I want to darken that level just a little bit more, this layer, because it's way in the foreground. I like that like that. See how that sort of blends in a little bit? It's much more in the foreground and it's in shadow, and now all the light's going to be hitting up in here. Okay? So let me finish blocking in. Again, do the local color thing. I just come in here and I just swab some of these local colors and I sort of spread them around a little bit. I just loosely just sort of come in here, paint some of this in, get this to blend in a little bit in the foreground. And then once I get that blend looking okay, then I'm going to come in and I can throw some rocks in there and so on. I like to blend in a little bit of darker value in the front here so it looks like it's going from dark to light. So once I get that blended in here, something I could do really quick, there's a couple ways you can blend, and we haven't really talked about this yet, but one way you can blend is by just grabbing the eyedropper and swabbing variations in the color, and then just sort of lightly painting in here like this and getting colors to sort of blend in. Another way that you could get to blend is, remember we talked about the smudge tool. There's a couple different options there. I actually have another set of smudge tools that I need to give to you. A student gave to me that work really nice, and that's what I'm using here right now. I'm just sort of lightly coming in here and just sort of doing a little bit of like a stipple effect on top of what I painted, just to get that to smear in there right now, and then I'll come back to that in a little bit. So next thing I want to do is let me take off that layer. I want to put some rock in here and then figure out what else is going to happen up here on the side of my castle. I have nothing that's in there right now. So what I did is I came over and I just copied and pasted some rock that I had. And let me show you really quickly. Okay, let me take off the foreground element here. And if you see that, what I did is I came over here. Let me find the exact image that I had here. I just took this right here. Okay, I selected the lower portion of this rock right in here. So I just went like this and I selected all this area right in here like this. Super quick like that. I copied that. And then when I came back into my image, what I did is I pasted it. And yeah, it's blue and it doesn't quite fit. But then if I hit Control B, go to color balance, and if I put a little bit more yellow into it with a little bit more red, right there, do you see how that matches right now? So the rock that's already there. And then once I had that in here, I just sort of positioned it in here, transformed it, got it in here about just sort of right in here, and it's really too photorealistic right now. It's really sharp. So what I can do is I can just dull that down a little bit. See, and if I dull it down a little bit like that, it starts to blend in there a little bit. And then what I thought I'll blend it a little bit more. What I wanted to show you that's really cool is when you're using the stamp tool, you have this awesome option to stamp and increase the size at which it stamps. So let me show you how I would do that. This is really small here, right? So if you go under, I have this little icon right here. It's called Clone Source, okay? And that deals with that stamping tool. So if you don't have that, this is how you get it. Okay, let me come over here and let me close it right now. Let me figure out how to, I got it up there somehow. Anyway, this is how you get it. If you come under View, go to Windows right here and scroll down here and look for Clone Source. Do you see that? Under Window. And when you pull that up, okay, it'll bring up this little option right here from when you're stamping. And what you can do is if you look over here on the right-hand side of Clone Source, it gives you a percentage, and it's locked right now. So that allows me to stamp and then enlarge while I'm stamping, which is a really great function. So that's at 200%. So watch where that comes into effect right now is as I come back in here on the image, if I grab this and I hit that target to stamp, and then I come over here, it's going to enlarge that image by 200%, so the rocks in the front will be larger. Do you see that? And it'll make it sort of a natural transition where I can have them really large. So watch, let's come over here. Let me type in 300% then. Okay, there. So now I did that. I'm going to just grab one rock like right in here, and I'll come up here, find where I want that to sort of fit in. Let's say about right there. And it just stamped and placed the rocks there that were smaller 300%, much larger in the front, which is really cool. Now I can come back in here. I can type in 150. This really is a fantastic technique for making buildings and like spaceships and stuff. Once you make one shape, you can just sit there and duplicate that and then clone stamp it and then rotate it and turn it, and it's so much larger you don't even notice that it's been modified. Okay, so now I put it down to 150. I'm going to grab some of these right in here. What I'm going to do is just come over here. This time I'm going to do this on a new layer, because I don't want all of these going in the same direction. So there, I just stamped it, oops, about right there. I wanted to do it a little bit lighter at about 70%. Okay, now what I can do is I can turn that a little bit like this. Do you see that? So I create some variation in the flow of the rocks, so they're not all being stamped the same way, which is another simple way to work. I can go ahead and I can commit these two right now. Okay, so that's Clone Source under Stamp. That's really friendly, because anytime I want to do this, I just create another layer. I come in here, I can grab this to stamp. Yeah, there we go. Now as I go to stamp right here, I wish they had a rotate feature. That's what they need, is an automatic rotate, like a jitter adjustment or whatever when you stamp something. So that's all I like to do. I just like to have something that I can now block in. So I could come in here and I can grab some of these colors, and then I could always just rough this in really quick, and then I can block in a little bit more a little bit later. And then I start to see a pattern of like large and small, so I like that, this shape being here, and maybe there's a large rock there, maybe it drops down here, and I want to have another large rock over here. So again, I'm going to commit, it's all in one layer, right? So I might take part of this rock, that copy, paste that guy, bring him right over here. I'm going to transform him like this, make him much larger, put him sort of on the side right over here like that, and just to have a little bit of more variation inside there as I'm working. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to hit paste again. The rock's still in the memory, right? This time I'll go to levels, and I might darken this rock a little bit more. So it's offset a teeny bit more, bring it up towards the front. Just transform that, stretch it out, leave it in about there. And as you can see, I start to build this transition that's sort of taking place. Okay. So I was wrong. Why did it stamp on that other level and allowed me to rotate it? I guess I just pasted it. Yeah, I have that. So let me commit. This is where I start working too fast when I'm talking, and then I forget where I was. There we go. So I got that together. Let's commit to those. Let me stamp. I'm going to come in here and stamp. I'm still at 150%. So I'm going to make this much smaller. Actually, what I might do is just take some of this right here. Since this was larger, I'm going to copy that, paste it, and then bring it over, turn it down, and just sort of stretch it out a little bit more. Oops. Get that to fade in there a little bit, like so. And you can also go to a smaller percentage. So if I go, I thought you can go down to 80. Let me see if I can try that again. There we go. Now I can come over here and stamp this and get a little bit more smaller. There we go. Then I could go in and sort of paint over it, blend it a little bit more, get that to sort of fit in there. And I need to figure out what I'm going to do here with the gray, but that, again, I'm going to just merge that together right now so I have it, and then I could decide if I want to do a little bit more. I'm actually going to dull it down just a little bit because I don't want it too bright, and then I could come back and get that to paint in a little bit. So let's take a look at what I have now. So I have this sort of overlapping on the top here. I have to adjust my layers. The rock layer is on top of the foreground, so I need to drop that above the main. There it goes. So I have this item in the front here. I have some rocks transitioning off. Let me grab this. This is something I was working on before. I'm going to drag that rock layer, bring it down a little bit, see if I can move it over. Like that. There we go. So I like that idea of this sort of, I wanted this cliff feel in here, and I might come back and add a couple more elements in there, but let me see. I also had, I put another foreground element in here. I had another arch, okay? And I thought about positioning that over here somewhere and using it. That actually could fit like that, overlapping that, but it's way too light. So I need to come in here and darken the value quite a bit, like that. So I like the idea of this old civilization. It looks like there's a pathway that's maybe leading down between all this. And actually that's something I could do, is I could come over here in the foreground and start to indicate this pathway, and I might even be able to come in there and paint somebody like walking down or something. So maybe I'd have this part of this path in here coming up through, and then it connects through all this. Okay. All right, so next thing I want to do, I started messing with some foreground. I can mess with the path a little bit. I got some rocks in here. Let's drop in another element in the back here, but let me commit to a couple layers. I'm starting to get a little busy here. So I have that layer there. Okay. Then I have this other foreground. See, that's a rock. This is where it gets confusing. So I'm going to come there. That's all rock now, and I can adjust that. Okay, and I have to blend in there still. It's not finished, but if I look at the foreground here, this is the same shape as this building here. So I want to adjust that a little bit here. Let me do that real quick here. So let me see if I take my lasso, I might be able to take some of this that's right here and move it over a little bit more, like that. Okay. And then that way it looks like there maybe the old arch continued through right here. And then I'm going to commit to these now. Okay. They're one. And I have some leftover eraser marks I need to get rid of on here just to clean this up a little bit more. There we go. So I like that. I have that arch in there. I still want to darken it a little bit more because it's in the foreground. I want it out of the way from what's back there. Okay. So next thing I'm going to do, let's drop a sky in there. I want to see something, and then I can figure out if I'm going to have a bridge walking through here or what other type of image I'm going to have. So what I find to be really useful is just to take photos that you like, try to throw them in there and blend them and see what happens. Okay. Let's start with the sky first. Let me come over here real fast. Let me grab this. I have two skies that I grabbed that I thought were pretty cool. Let me grab this one. Thought that was neat. And then let me grab that one too. Okay. So let's start with this guy here. I actually like that one a lot. Select all. I'm going to copy that. Let's come back over here to my castle. I'm going to paste that in. Okay. It's a lot smaller, but that's all right. Right now I'm going to drop it down under the main layer so it's in the background here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to transform this and grab it and make it a lot larger. Okay. Say about there. Now what I like about that is see that yellow haze on the bottom? I sort of like how that's being picked up. Now that's too much orange in the background. That's a little bit lighter like that, but let me see if I can bring this over a little bit. Okay. What I'm going to do is see if I can stamp some of this. I'm going to go to 100%. I'm going to come here and just go straight across. I'm going to stamp that in. See how I did that real quick? Just taking the stamp tool and going straight across. Okay. And I can still adjust this. If I go to, it's a little dark up there. If I go to Control U, remember I have the hue and saturation control. So just even what I just did right there out of habit, see how I just adjusted that a little bit more. I changed the hue on it. Let me show you the difference. I just moved it over positive 14. If I do Control Z, look at the difference. See how I had a little bit too much red in there? I adjusted the hue just a little bit like that, and now that's starting to fit a little bit, which is pretty cool. I like what's starting to happen in here. Then I could come back in here. I could add some type of a walkway going across. I might put a couple other pillars in here. Now I would stop and sort of, I have a good starting point now to look at what to determine how to move forward from here. I don't like this cloud though. It's awfully yellow there. So what I'm going to do real quick is let me just grab some of this up here and I'm going to stamp. I'm going to come down to about a 30%. I'm just going to lightly go over some of that. Oops, got a little too Command Z. I didn't want to get rid of that cloud. Yeah, let me go down to about 30% as I stamp here. There we go. That's pretty cool. So I just erased some of that darker spot. And I like what's there. I still would come back in here and paint on some more clouds in here. And I could do that. Remember the cloud brush I gave you guys the other day? That would be a great effect to come in here and use. Okay, but just remember the benefit. If you put a layer in, like right now, if I want to tweak this layer a little bit more and you're a little scared, just duplicate the layer like this. Okay, turn off the one that you have. And then come in here, go to Control Balance or Hue and Saturation and mess with it a little bit. If I want to see what this looks like with a little bit more yellow, see how I just did that? I could come in here, look at that, and I could adjust that. I put a little bit more yellow into that layer. Okay, let's see if I put a little bit more red, what happens. Now red just gets to be too much. I do like the thought of, now that looks sort of cool. Look at that difference. A little bit more blue, and the reason why I want to put blue in it is clouds, as everything recedes, we have blue sky. So even though the time of day, with this looks like the sun might be sort of going down at a low angle shot, I like the blue that dissipates in the back, and it's also a color that's going to contrast against this yellow highlights that I have here. So if I get a little bit of blue in there, that's not bad. I'm going to hit OK. The reason why I like to do that is look at the difference now. I put a little bit more blue in that, and then look at that one. See, it has a little bit more red in there. And I like a little bit of that blue in there. It sort of creates a nice little transition. So I like what's happening right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take this layer. I'm just going to leave it off for right now. And then I'm going to come back in here and start working. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add a little bit more to the bridge. I want to see if I can finish up this road or walkway. What am I going to put on this right side? And I might even be able to come back in here and have like a surrounding mountain or cliffside in the back that anchors up to part of this castle. Okay, so I'm just going to stop at this point right here. I would just wanted to get you to this level. Let's do a little foreground element again in here. So let me take a look at some of the other images. Let me close these out. I don't need that guy. You could take two photos and blend them on top of each other. Easy. Not a problem. Okay. Now here's something that's sort of cool. Check this out. If I take my lasso and I could come in here and look, I'm just going to select around part of this rock structure right there. There we go. I selected the bottom half. I'm going to copy that. If I come in here to my castle, I'm going to paste that in. Okay. Let's see where it is. Try that again. Paste. There he goes. I'm going to bring that up here. Watch. I'm going to transform that right now. See, and I can put it right here sort of in the foreground. But it's not quite, it actually could fit in there somewhat well. It could look like I'm on the sort of cliff front. Now it's way too light though, you can see that. So the rule about atmospheric perspective, things that are closer to me are darker, they're richer, and as they fade away they get lighter and lighter. So if I come back under levels, I come in here and I adjust this, I start to darken the sky up a little bit. I could get that to blend in here. Now one thing is that it's not matching the same, doesn't have enough yellow or red tint in there. So the first thing I like to do is go to color balance, throw a little bit more yellow on that, a little bit more red, get it to sort of blend in to where it feels like it's in the right environment, which feels pretty good. Then I come back under, I go to levels and I just go to the slider and then I'm just going to darken it like it's in the foreground, like so. Okay. Now, watch, imagine if I wanted to take my whole castle here and duplicate it and just put it way in the background and blur it a little bit. This is a pretty cool little trick that you can do. Watch, I have my castle here, I'm going to drop it. I'm going to move this all the way in the back here like this. I'm going to transform this right now. Let's say I scale it down. Let's say I have a whole nother civilization back here. Let me just tweak it real quick. Can make it look totally different just really quickly by copying and pasting it. But can you see how it's way rich? This doesn't match to here because it's way too, the values are too similar. I have to lighten that up. It's dropping back in atmospheric perspective. So if I come over here and I grab this and I start to lighten it up a little bit, that can start to make it feel a little bit more believable. Because see that atmospheric transition, dark to medium to lighter. And not only that, but the details that are in there, they're going to start to get lost. So I have this option under my filter setting where I can blur. Okay, so if I come down in here, my favorite is Gaussian blur because it allows me actually to control the rate at which I'm blurring. Okay, so I can come in here right now, look at that, and if I turn it on all the way, you see how that blurs it and fades it completely? What I can do is I can blur it out just a little bit like that to where it's not part of the primary focus in here. See, and all the details get lost. And then what's really neat is I could come in here and I could actually take my lasso tool and I could stretch and cheat some of this. Watch. I'm going to take that. I'm going to move that. Oops. Sorry. Let's go back to main. There it is, V. I'm going to move that back over here a little bit. Deselect, and then I can come in here. I could select some of this. I'm going to hit transform. I could stretch part of that out a little bit, bring it down a little like so. Copy, paste that. And bring some of that down in there. And you can just keep modifying it. It's way in the background. It's going to be blurred. We're not going to see it as much. Come in and start to paint a little bit in there off of what I already had. On a minute, why is it not stamping? Oh, that's why. Come on, Photoshop, go to 100. There it goes. See, and I can start to create a whole nother like castle way in the back there that doesn't have to be exactly the same as what I had. Yeah.
How do you save the stamp
hold on a second. Let me finish tweaking this guy a little bit here. Okay, hold on. Let me pause the recorder. Okay, so I was just goofing around. I was just doing this really quickly to show you what you could have, how you could create something in the back. But can you see that's still a little too rich with some values in it? So what I could do is I can lighten it up like this. Now see how that really starts to drop back there? Okay, and watch. Let me see if I could just transform it, make it look like it's like this whole little, like that. Okay, see, I could literally leave that in there, and then I could come back and work on the front, get the rocks to blend, work on this, and that's how you start to create a lot more atmospheric perspective inside your piece here. And the one last thing I was going to show you, I'll show you this in tomorrow's class, okay? But I'll do a separate lecture on it. After you do this, do you see how I'm blending this whole world together? Once it's all on one layer, I could come in and there's a couple cool paint effect brushes that allow me to go in there and paint on top of it and smear all those pixels around and make it look like I just painted it. And I'll show you guys that tomorrow. Okay, but I have a pretty good blend now. What I need to do is go spend some TLC on this foreground. I need to get some of this a little bit darker. I want to get some rocks in here. I need to finish this transition in here. And then once I finish some of that, I can come back in and then work on what might be in the backdrop here. And actually, I'm looking at that and I'm like, you know what, that's not really what I wanted to do, was have a mountain range or another castle in the back. I sort of want another mountain to drop back in here, and I could come back and work on that. But I just wanted to show you quickly how I could create like a whole nother subsection and just drop it in the back, fade it down, get it to sort of, you know, pop in there. But does that make sense how the atmospheric perspective is working? Because I saw some of you guys that were working earlier, and items that were receding away from you were not getting lighter. They have to get lighter. And again, if you get really confused on that, all you have to do is come in and take a look. And if you take a look at some of these photos, look at how rich everything is in here, and look at how these mountains really start to drop back. Okay, and they get much lighter. That's the base of atmospheric perspective. You can go anywhere on Google and type in, here's a good example here. Look at how crisp these mountains are right here in the rock formations, and then look at back here how all this sort of fades together. That's that atmospheric perspective way in the back. What's really cool is that once I get that castle going in here, okay, what I can do is watch. I could come over here and here, let me take that layer. See my cloud layer that's back behind it, right? I could take part of my cloud layer and take some clouds out of here, and I can copy that, and I could paste that, and then I can drop that up on top. Now watch, if I move that cloud down, and then I could drop the opacity on that cloud, and I can get part of that cloud to fade over, or I could just paint, okay, merge it on top of each other, and I could start to paint that in. Hold on a minute, let me show you an easier way to do it. Let me commit to a couple layers here. I'm getting way too many. Okay, I want to keep this cloud layer, so let me duplicate it. Let's say I wanted that castle in the backdrop. I know it was just a real quick demo. Let's say I wanted to keep that. If I merge that together with this, there, so now it's all one layer. Okay, ignore that stone in the background there. All right, now watch. I can come over here and I go back to the stamp tool. And remember, the stamp had a setting on it. So if I go to stamp and I go to 3 right now, so I'm going to stamp that cloud and I come down here and put it right over the top there. Watch. If I just come over here and just click a little bit, it starts to put part of that cloud right over the top of it, which is pretty cool that it does that. And I can create some really cool atmosphere really fast that way. Okay, but that's not what I wanted to do, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that layer. Just thought I'd mention that really quick as an option. Okay, so let me pause right here. I'll render this up, and then I'll keep going. I want to put some foreground elements in here. I'm going to work on this for the rest of class. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, guys, welcome back. I just stopped for a little bit here, and I was fixing a couple things on here. I have my horizon line displayed there, again, through that ruler setting. And if you wanted to get rid of that, just to show you really quick, you just have to come under View and go to Extras, which is Control-H, and then it's gone. So I changed a couple things in the demo. I was putting a city back there, and that's not really what I wanted to do. So let me show you where I'm at right now. I was really starting to focus on the foreground here. So I have some rocks up here in the front, and then on the left-hand side I have this sort of set of ruins. And I started to work a little bit, if I zoom in here, I was copying and pasting and making some of these blocks here, and I wanted to work on this pathway, and I thought I'd show you guys a cool technique that I learned back in the day. If you paint a really dark value on the ground like that, to sort of a black and some dark grays, what that allows you to do, I copied and pasted some rocks in the front there, and then when I copied and pasted some other rocks right here, I have that black value underneath. So what I can do is if I take my eraser and if I come down at like 3, and I come across here and just sort of hit some little parts that might be like cracks or definition in the rock, that black value that's underneath is going to pick up. And it's a great way to make your own sort of custom rocks just by blending and erasing off of one photo to another. So by doing this, I get some really cool effects really fast. It's allowing me to basically create like a crack or almost like a grout line of some kind, even though it's not tile. I'm just erasing and I'm getting this underneath here. And just by doing that right there, do you see that? It's just immediately created this nice little just sort of foundation in there. And this is a real fun technique too. If you're blending multiple photos and you want to get some dark values underneath, you're just erasing a little bit of what you pasted on there. So that's looking pretty good. I like that. I'm going to come back over here, the rocks in the front, and I'm going to make these just a little bit darker like this because they're a little bit more in the foreground like so. What I thought I'd do is I wanted to show you really quickly how, let me adjust this. This is straight across, which I don't like, and then this is straight across. So I'm going to fix that really quick. Let me commit. I'm going to merge all of my foreground elements right here together, so they're all on one layer right now. Okay, there they are. And I'm just going to come in here really quick to adjust this. I'm going to select this with the lasso tool, and then see if I could just come in here, and I'll just probably go to like distort, where I can just grab a corner. See, and I might be able to bring it down a little bit and bend it a little. I didn't like that corner hitting that other corner right there. It was let me show you what I'm talking about. It's a tangency right there on edge to edge. So even if I wanted to transform this, go to skew and just sort of, bring one side in a little bit, maybe pinch it over, bring it down. I want to keep that side from not hitting there. So that's pretty good. So I can just leave that there. And then I got to watch this. It's hitting here as well. I have that line coming down here. So if I Command Z and go back, I might actually just transform. I'm thinking about even deleting part of that rock, but let me see if I can just come back to distort, and maybe I just squash it down a little bit more so it's not so much in the way. There, that's not bad. And I'll come back and mess with it later when I have a fresh set of eyes. And then here, I definitely want to change that up a little bit. I don't like the way, let me zoom in there, I don't like the way that it's just straight across. So what I can do really quickly on that is I could just go to stamp right here and take some of this area and just put it all right in here. Okay, and it's under my horizon line. Remember, my horizon line's right up here, and so I'm going to be able to see on top of it. Okay, so now that I stamped that little piece down there like so, I might even stamp some of this over here a little bit, just fade it off a little like that. Okay, so what I can do now is if I just select a little segment like this in here, and if I copy and paste that, and it's darker, so if I go to Control L for levels and I lighten this up a little bit, okay, and get a little bit light like that. And I also want to get a little bit more yellow in there, so I'll go to Control B for balance, just to sort of mimic a little bit of the light coming through. See how orangey that gets? It's a nice tint, but this is in the shadow though, so that's not bad, leaving it sort of like this. And what I can do is drag that sort of about there, and then I could just sort of erase around it a little and get it, make sure my eraser's at 100%. Get that little rock formation in there. Let me take a look at it again. Actually, I'll just drop it underneath like this. There we go. Try to get a jagged edge on that. Sort of like that. I'm going to paste that same one there. Let's go ahead, let's rotate that this way. I'm going to get a little bit of the side right here. Same thing, let's go to balance first, add a little bit more yellow in there. Little teeny bit of red. And then I'll just go to levels, let's lighten it up a little. Okay. And let me go in here, I want to erase a little bit this little edge right there. Okay. Do that over, and that's fine for right now. I'm just going to commit to that. Okay, so what I really wanted to show you, this is a great way to make a shadow in here. So I have this area that's darker because it's closer to me, but one problem is that I need a little bit more blue on it to really pull it into the foreground, to make it look like it's in a definite shadow. And that way the worms will pop out in here. So here's a real quick, if you notice everything's on one layer, and let me show you what I can do here. I can select all, okay? And then if I go to move my arrow buttons real quick, it selects everything for me. So everything's selected right in here. Now what I can do is I can copy and paste that. Now I've pasted another layer up above, right? Actually, let me do it this way. I shouldn't have copied and pasted. If I just take the selection and just create another layer, here, let me show you. So look, I was making it one extra step when I don't need to. Here we go. So what I'm going to do is I have basically this selected, but I'm on another layer that's empty. What I'm going to do is come in here right now, and I'm going to pick like a darker blue, something about like that. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to switch this and go to like a blue, but a little bit darker. There you go, something about right there. I'm going to lighten up the top color. What I'm going to do is I'm going to throw a gradient going down. If the light's coming left to right here, I'm going to have a gradient going this way. And I'm going to come over here, press G. I'm on the bucket tool. If I hold and go to the gradient tool, the gradient allows me to select, and I could stroke a gradient across and see it went from the dark value to the lighter value, right? So I need to go this way to get sort of that darker feel here, and then it gets a little bit lighter as we go to the side. And what that's done is it's done it as a pure color, but it's on the layer up above. So then if I come down here and I drop the opacity down a little bit, you see that's a really easy way that I could put a blue tint onto a series of rocks. So if we click off and look at it, okay, it also helps to unify these elements together. Now, I am debating, I don't know if I want to go exactly blue on it, but what's really cool is that I could adjust the hue really quickly. Since it is a pure layer above my photo manipulation underneath, I could come down here and go to Control U for hue and saturation. And if I just move the slider around, look at what happens. See, I can literally control and pick the value and the temperature at which I want that foreground element to be at. Look, and as I slide more this way, see that's putting a little bit more green into it. And that's a pretty cool feature. There it's a little bit, that's actually sort of cool. It puts a little bit of a yellow tint that matches part of that world there. And I'm actually liking that quite a bit. So I'm going to go ahead, hit OK. Okay, and I'm just going to leave it like that. Let me hit Control Z and show you the difference of where we were. That's where we were. And then that's how I just adjusted it lightly. And then also look at too, if I take that off, see, it helps to unify that whole structure in the front there, and it creates a really nice foreground. Okay, so with that said and done, I still need to come in here. I need to resolve. I can see underneath this facade right here, and I haven't put anything in there. I need to come in here and sculpt out some. It's going to be in a dark shadow. I'm going to have some type of rock or brick. Actually, I just threw this bridge in here together, and I haven't made up my mind if I want this to go like really steep downward, or if I want it to be, I don't know if I want it to be an arched bridge like this, because you would have to have some type of supports to really make it realistic. So this would be the next area. I like my foreground. I'm going to leave that. I have a background in here that I think is working. And then I also came over here and I just copied and pasted these stones in here really quick. And let me show you this layer. I just took this, I pasted it in here, and what I liked about it is if I can get this to sort of angle in a little bit and point us back into the castle, that's going to be a win-win for me. And I like the fact that this might break down and create an interesting silhouette that brings me back to my key castle here. Okay. Now the only problem with this is right now is that, well, a couple problems. I just threw it in there really quick, and I haven't really sculpted or erased any detail out of that. And I could really get in here and get some cool little nooks and crannies out of that and make it look pretty cool. But it's heavily detailed right now, and that's not a good thing. And I also need to make it a little bit lighter. So let's try doing that. If I make it just a teeny bit lighter here, okay, so it drifts off a little bit more into the background like that. That feels good. And then again, I need to put some type of a blur on it because it's just way too, there's too much detail in here. It's pulling my eye away from the castle. So let's go down to filter. We talked about that earlier, just goofing around with some of the blur aspects. I really like the Gaussian blur because I can get in here and I can control the blend of it like that. And that's not too bad. I could leave it at about there and just have it lightly blended in. Okay. That way the item in front of me is really crisp, and then I could finish up. What I need to do is figure out, I'll just draw on this real quick. I need to figure out how I'm going to do the side of the bridge, or if I'm going to have it more like a cliff facade going this way. So I need to resolve some of that, and then I got to eventually come in here and finish this area of detail that's right up in here on the top of the castle, and then that's it. I'd probably wrap it up and finish it. I also want to put a couple more clouds up on the top, and then I need to paint some highlights in here. So let me wrap this up for today's demo, and then tomorrow's demo I'll come in, I'll figure out the clouds, I'll finish the structure right here, and then we'll come in and we'll talk about matching highlights from the photo that's in the back. So we had two different cloud photos. We had that one, okay, and we have that one. And what we can do is I'm going to show you a method in which you can grab the highlight source of this highlight color right here, and how we need to blend some of that in to part of our castle here and have some orange highlights that mimic the same sun that's coming across, and then it'll start to feel very realistic and match what we're doing. Okay, so we'll see you guys tomorrow.